Hi everyone, it's Nina Goradia. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner on the non-dual path. I'm going to expand here on the intersection of somatic experiencing and non-duality when it comes to the freeze response. If you want a thorough introduction that goes into a great deal of theory, before you watch this, you're welcome to. I'll link it right here, but you don't have to understand the general gist of this. So I will briefly give an overview here, and then I'm going to focus on dorsal vagal freeze up here. So here we have activation or stress, and then here we have parasympathetic, sympathetic, and another version of parasympathetic. So as we have an increase in activation or stress, a normal response is this green here where we have some activation or increase in adrenaline or cortisol. And it could be somewhat of a fight or flight response. So as we have an increase in activation or stress, we're going to have an increase in body response, fight or flight, cortisol, adrenaline. And in wild animals, that looks like this green curve where they have that increase, but then they follow their fight or flight instincts. So they hit this threshold for release. They don't add anything extra to it. And it just releases back down into parasympathetic. This is the ideal response for the body to stay healthy, for us to have the appropriate flow between sympathetic and parasympathetic throughout the day. We don't want to be stuck in one or the other. We want to have that flow. And so when we are suppressing the emotions, this blue is representing it. We're not getting to this threshold where it can release. When we have this purple, it's that we have the event that's causing the stress, plus we have our thoughts and reactions about what's happening, and that can add activation, and we can be stuck in overwhelm. We have stories about it. So what we need to do is move our attention from the story and place it simply on body sensations to help bring this down to the threshold where it can release. So then we have dorsal vagal freeze when the activation is so high that it takes us into another level of parasympathetic. So this parasympathetic is rest or digest, sympathetic, fight or flight. Parasympathetic is freeze response up here. What these two have in common is there is very little activity, but here there's a very high level of activation or charge that is causing this. It's like an immobilization. We can feel dissociated, stuck in shame. It can feel hopeless. It's like a preparation for death. So wild animals, when they're prey and they feel like they can't get out of a situation, they will play dead or they will freeze, and hopefully they're camouflaged against a background. But this parasympathetic, we're just relaxed and there's a very low level of activation, and our body can repair and we can have social interactions here. So this level of parasympathetic with freeze, this is where I want to bring the wisdom of non-duality. So in non-duality, we are remembering who we are, and I'm going to put a video right here, I'll link for you, regarding our true identity being the absolute, being consciousness. And we are also trying to not react. We're trying to be instead of do. So the wisdom of this in regards to the nervous system is that when we are adding to the stress that we're experiencing in life, an event, and say like it takes us all the way up here into freeze. And then the only way you can really come out of freeze is you start to relax a little bit, whether that's relaxing muscle tension, whether it's relaxing internally, the fascia. And then when we do that, we dip below this line into sympathetic, and we might be surprised that, whoa, how come when I relax, I suddenly am having to deal with all this fight or flight energy that was underneath this freeze response. And so that could be too overwhelming. And if I don't know how to discharge that back into this parasympathetic where I can feel safe and grounded and resourced again, then I could react to it. And my reaction could be one of fear, one of judgment, one of over-functioning or doing. And what that does is that increases the activation again, and it can take me right back into freeze. And in freeze, I feel immobilized, can hardly do anything. Maybe I have functional freeze and I'm able to get by, but it's really hard to respond to life the way that I want to. Like I'm just kind of in zombie mode almost and just going through the motions, but it's not living. And so when I relax, I go here into overwhelm, I react, I try to fix it, and then I get pushed right back up here into freeze because fear of our emotions is going to increase this activation, that reaction to our experience. And that's why in overwhelm here, when I stop reacting, when I stop judging my experience, my emotions, when I stop doing something to try to fix it and I just watch it and I'm just being with it, that's when I can get to this threshold where I can get a release. So it's very interesting, okay? The wisdom of non duality, the non judgment, the non reactiveness, being versus doing, all of that helps us come down into here and then just keep staying with our experience and then allow for this discharge. Similar to somatic experiencing, these two modalities are extremely complementary to each other. Non duality really encourages this perspective of remembering who I am, not getting so caught up in my experience. And that allows me to have some space when I'm experiencing these intense emotions or sensations in my body. So, as much as I can look at them with equanimity and allow them while not identifying with them, while not thinking that that's who I am. I'll link a video here, the introductory video for the trauma flow chart, which looks into disidentification. And there are many other videos on the channel that talk about disidentification. So I encourage you to look at those if you are new to this. And so once I do that, I'm experiencing a letting go. I can't do or react or fix my way out of freeze. That's the ultimate point I'm trying to make here in this video. It can be like, oh, something's wrong. I better use that tool that I've been using my whole life, the ego, right? That wants to fix it and change it. But we can get to a place where that no longer works, especially if I've just been stuck here in freeze and it's depleted my body. It's very hard on the body to be in freeze. So much energy is used to maintain freeze. I mean, while you're in here, it's a conservation of energy. But the fact is, like you're not moving, so you're conserving energy. But the fact is, you are using energy to push down all of this fight or flight that is underneath it. That does take energy to suppress emotions, so that when you are feeling these emotions, when they come up, it takes energy to release them as well. However, once you release them, you are going to be saving energy by not having to keep on chronically pushing down feelings and using energy to do that. So, freeze can save your life. Okay, if you're in a situation and you freeze and that helps you get out of it, that's wonderful. So, you're conserving energy in that moment. But to live in freeze, that's what I'm talking about. That's not necessarily energy conservation. That's a very high state of activation that your body is just maintaining and you're trying to function in it. It's very difficult to do. So we want to somehow discharge this. And then when you feel the fight or flight energy underneath this, try not to react to it. So a lot of different philosophies, Buddhism and Hinduism and non-duality and different faiths that go into non-duality and their mysticism components, they are talking about non-reaction, like Course in Miracles and Christianity and Sufism. And so you want to look at, can I be with my experience without reacting, without fixing, without thinking it has something to do with me, without thinking it means something is wrong with me or my life? The meaning making, all of this stuff increases activation. So, this is a very practical way that you can see why these things are helpful for the nervous system. And that's why they say, well, all we can do is let go. And when you let go, oh boy, the ego loses some control, some feeling of control, and it feels really scary. And you can only do, what you can handle. You don't have to let go of everything all at once. Get professional help if this is something that is too intense to work on or look at on your own. You can do this in a very titrated way. You can have someone help you and you just do chunks at a time. You integrate it, then you go to the next chunk so it's not re traumatizing. But in general, the theory is that when you are letting go, you're going to ride that wave of deactivation down, get grounded into the body. That is why letting go, acceptance, and feeling your emotions is the way out of freeze. The ego which wants to do and fix and judge and change and overfunction. And that can help in times of trauma. Just in that moment, it can help you survive, but it's not going to give you a good quality of life. But the ego cannot do security. The ego cannot do feeling safe. It's going to keep ramping this up. Now, you can educate the mind, which is different from the ego. I'm going to link a video about how they're different. And when you give the mind enough wisdom, it can still make good decisions, but they're not ego based. They're not out of fear. They're not out of basic survival. The mind can discern and make good judgments. Oh, yeah, this is the moment where I need to relax, even though I feel unsafe, even though it really feels unsafe. But this is freeze. This is a stuck response. I'm not in actually an unsafe situation in this moment. This is something that is stuck in the body. It's carried over from the past. The mind can make educated decisions about where to place attention. Okay, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to try to let go a little bit at a time. So it's not that, oh, I just have to throw out my mind and lose control and just feel. It's not like that. It's that I want to start listening to the wisdom as I get educated on what's going on and not the fear, panic responses of the ego that might have old stories about what's happening from childhood. So I hope this helps. I'm going to make some more videos about this in different situations, freeze and non duality. So let me know what you think, and please feel free to share if you have noticed this in your life in some practical way that can benefit others, or just share whatever you want. So, okay, everyone, I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of your day.